All right, so that's on and we're live. So welcome, thanks for signing up. Before I introduce Pernell, I just want to mention a couple logistics things. One is you'll see there's actually two of me, and the reason for that is to allow Pernell and I to socially distance. In order to make this work, Pernell came over and we cooked some burgers and grabbed dinner together, and so he's here with me. But once I introduce him, he's going to take this chair, and I'm going to be able to sit 6 feet away with my mask on, but monitor chat and hand raising and things like that. So you don't have to worry about doing that while he's doing his presentation. Oh, there's a couple more people. Let me let Heidi in and Barbara in.
Greg, where's Ellen? That's what I really want to know.
Ellen is on the call somewhere.
I know she is. I mean, what room is she in if she's not socially distancing from?
She's up in the living room, and
Okay.
Pernell and I are down in our kind of my basement classroom that I use to teach classes out of.
Okay.
Which actually, the true secret there is I'm right next to the Wi-Fi server, so we're unlikely to lose our internet signal. She may drop off.
If somebody's
Anyway.
the age she does, yeah.
So the main significance of the fact that there's two of me is once Pernell starts speaking, if you want to say something to the host, you could send a chat to me at Craig's iPad, because that's what I'll be looking at. And then I'll also see hand raises. And just, I think probably at this point in the pandemic, most of us have been Zooming more than we'd like to, but as a quick refresher, if you want to raise your virtual Zoom hand, you go to the menu bar and click participants, and then a box will pop up, and one of your choices will be to raise your hand, and a little blue hand will pop up next to you, and I will see that, and so I'll know that you're trying to ask something. Or you can post a chat, and I'll be tracking the chat, as I say, so that Pernell doesn't need to be distracted by that while he's talking. So basically, particularly when we get to the Q&A part of things, cue to me on Craig's iPad, and then I can make sure, rephrase it or make sure Pernell sees the question, or just unmute you so you can ask Pernell the question, which actually reminds me of one other thing I needed to do before I lost me on this, which is to make my iPad a co-host. There we are. All right, now I'm official. So that's kind of about the only real rules of things. The other thing I want to do before I introduce Pernell is just to recognize Garrett Crawford, who's on the call and also in outer space, apparently.
Hello, everybody. Good evening.
I want to make sure you to recognize Garrett, because Garrett is actually the executive director of IEG, the Impact Empowerment Group. And it was great that he could join us this evening to support Pernell and what we're doing, and then also be available if anybody's asking specifics about IEG or whatnot. So with that, let me introduce the speaker. Let me just say a minute about Impact Empowerment Group for people who don't know who that is. It's a community started, generated, led nonprofit. The office is up at 34th and Hudson, right up in the Holly. And it is focused on gang intervention work, gang diversion work, working in schools, working with former gang members coming out of incarceration, working with other people in the community affected by gang violence and what happens in gangs and what happens in a community, which is obviously a big piece of what Pernell is going to talk about. And just an amazing organization that does incredible things with sometimes, bubble gum and paper clips and not much else. Impressive group of folks. And they, about 3 years ago, I've been working with them for a number of years. I've been on their advisory board, which is how I got to be colleagues and friends with Garrett, Pernell, and other people up there. But about 3 years ago, we applied for a Mission Life grant with Montview and became a Mission Life partner with Montview, and have been the last 3 years. And very pleased with that and excited about that. And And honestly, from my perspective, our relationship with IEG is maybe less about what we can do for IEG than from our perspective is these are people who would, love to be a resource for us and help frame our perspective, particularly in this moment when we're all so much more focused on issues of racial justice and what's happening in the other part of our neighborhood in North Park Hill. And so this program tonight is, partly an offering based on that. And Pernell being willing to take the time and talk to us all about his life experience and his perspective and the work he does around gangs. And as he'll talk more about, a formerly incarcerated Black man himself. So with that, let me introduce our speaker, Bernell Heinz. And I'll introduce him this way. I've had the pleasure of knowing Pernell for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years.
And I have seen Pernell in all kinds of contexts. I have been in meetings with Pernell, with the CEO of some significant Denver nonprofit foundations. And I have had the incredible experience of sitting with Pernell in a support group of former gang members held up at the office on a Thursday evening where it was 22 pretty hardcore gang guys and me. And so I've seen Pernell in all sorts of environments, and he is one of the smartest people I know, and he is a person of such profound faith and grace. He's just a wonderful person, and amazingly open and honest, and he is someone who, more than most people I know, in almost any context, in any meeting, when a question comes up, there's a matter of discussion, a matter of contention, he's got this gift of just nailing it and saying, look, this is what I see happening here, and you know what, that's what's happening here. So with that, let me turn my chair over to Pernell Hines, the Associate Director of Impact Empowerment Group, to talk to us about both his personal story and gang culture and gang history in Denver. And our plan is to, his presentation will run maybe till about 8 or however long it takes. And then we definitely want to leave time for Q&A and people to be able to have conversation with Pernell directly about anything that comes up for you in terms of the current moment we're in. So with that, Pernell, my friend, my colleague.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pernell Hines, Associate Director of IEG. I want to just tell you and explain a little bit about myself and where I come from. I was actually born in 1973 at Denver General Hospital, now it's known as Denver Health. I came immediately from there how many days it took me to get out the hospital. I came straight to Park Hill, born and raised in Park Hill native. 2390 Claremont was my address, so I didn't live too far from where Craig is living now. I wasn't the only person in my family living in there. It was my grandmother's house, and she had 7 of her kids with their kids living there. It was my mother, her sisters and brothers, and my grandparents there, and about 15, 20 kids. Out of all these kids, none of us had our fathers around, out of all these kids at this point in time. I went to Park Hill Elementary from all grades. All my grades, being in Park Hill Elementary, like I said, it was just a normal childhood at that point in time. But the difference between me and a lot of other children that I was going to school with, I didn't have a father figure in my family. As far as immediate having a father saying I can attach myself to this man as my dad, I didn't have that. Even though I knew who my father was, wasn't no role model, wasn't there to provide for me, wasn't none of that. So, other than that, I say that I had a pretty good childhood at that point in time. Went from Park Hill Elementary from kindergarten all the way to sixth grade. 6th grade, when I went to Smiley, all schools I went to were in Park Hill. So I went to Smiley Junior High at this point in time, and this is when the gang stuff happened. I was just talking to Craig, and this is how it happened for me to join a gang. Also want to let you know that I am one of the first gang members to represent the gang that I came from, which is the biggest gang in Park Hill as we speak. Is called the Bloods. And how that came about was just like I said, no guidance in the house from a man perspective. You know, all my role models were on TV, famous, from playing sports to acting. You know, I really didn't have a role model to, you know, attach myself to at this point in time. So I got into stealing at this point in time, stealing and, you know, just doing things that I thought at this point in time was normal, you know, because everybody in my neighborhood you know, of my color was doing this in this part of Park Hill. So like I was explaining to Craig a minute ago, the how I became involved with the Bloods was, I don't know if any of you guys are really from Denver and you know anything about this, but they used to have a Target up on Colorado Boulevard and what's that, Alameda? Is it still there? Is still a Target there? Okay. Well, we went there and we had stole a brand, me by like 3-4 of my homies and my friends went and stole about 3 or 4 brand new bikes from there. And we rode them all the way from there, all the way to 33rd and Holly. And when we got there, and you know, we were riding past some older guys there, and they wanted to buy the bikes from us. Happened to be gang members. You know what I mean? Hey, you guys, you little dudes want to sell them bikes? So you know, we went and sold them the bikes. In the process, that we actually made more money than we ever had in our life. And at this point in time, this is what drew us into the gang life was money. You know, at this point in time in my life. Park Hill, as far as the Bloods is concerned, is blocked off from Colorado Boulevard to Quebec. From Colfax to the freeway is the Blood neighborhood as far as we consider our territory. Our so-called rivals at this point in time was the East Side and the Crips. And they were located from Colorado Boulevard going back west into downtown. And their neighborhood consisted of Colfax and Colorado Boulevard, from Colorado Boulevard to about downtown. And then from like Colfax all the way to their part of the freeway in that same square. And at this point in time, our rivals outnumbered us. So it was easy for us to attach ourselves onto the Bloods because Park Hill never really got along with East Denver. Never, even when my father and my mother were younger, we never got along. So for Park Hill to become Bloods, it was almost natural, you know, and for guys like me to become Bloods and run with this particular gang was almost natural. So we joined the gang, and at this point in time, it was more about, with us as being from the organization that I decided to attach myself to, was more about money at this point in time. You know, we wanted to, you know, coming from, you know, families that really didn't have too much, you know, getting hand-me-down clothes, you know, it was $100 to me, and to even my mom at this point in time was money, you know. So for me to sell that bike and go home with $100, it just turned me on to something that I just got addicted to after so long. So along with that, drugs came into play as far as selling them. I've never been a drug user. You know, I never abused drugs in my whole entire life, but I had an addiction as far as selling them. So at this point in time, at 12 years old, I became a drug dealer. You know, from selling bikes, literally, from selling bikes to buying bikes and buying cars at 12 years old. It was an addictive lifestyle for a kid who really didn't know. I'm still living with my mother. It became an addictive lifestyle, and I attached myself and I drug myself all the way in. I pulled myself deeper than I know anybody at this point in time that was from my gang. At a very young age, I rose through the ranks as far as just like in the Army, you know. By the age of 15, I was already considered, you know, one of the top ranking members from the gang because of the things that I have done and for, you know, my loyalty that I have pledged unto the gang. In the process of, you know, me growing up in Park Hill, it was a culture, you know. I truly believe if that day when we stole those bikes and we sold those bikes to lawyers, I probably would have been a lawyer. You know, if it would, you know, I was just so vulnerable at this point in time in my life, but that wasn't the case. So, you know, at this point in time, you know, seeing thousands and thousands of dollars a day, being able to take care of my mother, even give my grandmother money and, live a pretty good lifestyle at this point in time. We started to fight over territory on where we would sell these drugs at with our rivals, and murders started to occur. Just a sheer life of violence started to unfold in Denver, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people who grew up or even know anything about how gangs, as far as the Bloods and Crips started in Denver, you know exactly what I'm talking about, from the mid '80s on through into now. I was a big part of that, and fighting over gang turf and colors, and just uh, it just became out of control to where we were having at least 2-3 murders a week. And if not murders, then we had shootings that even went farther than that. But it was an everyday occurrence. We was literally at war with our enemies, that we consider our enemies at that point in time, every day. I've been knowing about warfare since I've been 12 years old. When I turned 14, 15 years old, it was nothing. It was nothing for me to, run around with my gun. It was nothing for me to shoot my gun. It was nothing for me to duck from their bullets. This is just how it became. In the process of all the violence that was going on, I had gotten to altercations with a few guys that we were considering our enemies at that point in time, and I was sent to juvenile prison over some violent acts that I had committed. I was committed for 2 violent crimes, and I was given 2 years in the juvenile correctional facility out here, and I was sent to Lookout Mountain. At this point in time, like I was telling you, my rival gangs were bigger than us. They outnumbered us at least 10-1. So when I went to jail, it wasn't like it was on the streets. I didn't have a gun to protect me. I didn't have my friends there to protect me. We were outnumbered in jail just about the same. From the streets to jail, our rivals outnumbered us. So in the process of me going to the juvenile prison, I was, at this point in time, like I said, real deep into the gang. I had rose through the ranks. And so from how I conducted myself on the streets, I transformed that to the way I conducted myself in jail, in juvenile prison. And I was terrible in there. I was really fighting my enemies every day, whether it was called stabbing them, everything. I stayed in solitary confinement throughout almost my whole 2 years, because every time they would let me out, I would go, try to cause harm unto my enemies. So I went through that whole entire span of negativity and that thought process there. One thing good I can say that did come out of there is I got my GED in Lookout Mountain. I was able to obtain a GED. But the whole time I was there, my mind was stuck on negativity. I wasn't thinking of me being in jail. It didn't matter nothing to me. I was stuck where I was at. My mind was dazed and confused. I was just loyal to the whole entire gang, and I couldn't wait to get back out so I can cause more harm unto my rivals at this point in time. So that was my whole plot while I sat in there, was to how I was a few friends of mine had died while I was in there. So my whole plot while I sat in there the whole 2 years was to get out and cause harm unto my enemy. So I was released after serving my 2 years, and the day I got out, I went and retaliated on some of my enemies for one of my friends getting killed while I was in there. A guy who I was real close to, his name was Peanut. They slashed his throat at a party, and it kind of like hurt me real bad. And I just couldn't, see me not being able to, take this back to them and just, show them the same thing that I felt. So like I said, the day I got out, in my neighborhood, we call it putting in work, and work is called, they say putting in work, and it can be translated as me going to go get revenge on people who has caused harm to me, and it's a never-ending cycle once this point. So I got out, and that's exactly what I did. I went to my enemy side of town, and I opened fire, and I found myself in prison after being out no time at all. Went to prison right then, 17 years old. 15 from, so you want to show you my prison thing was juvenile prison from 15 to 17, from adult prison from 17 to 23. So when I went from, when I got caught for the shooting, they sentenced me and they gave me a 5-year sentence. And so I went to Buena Vista Correctional Facility, which is like a gladiator for guys who's just now going to prison or knuckleheads. So they called it gladiator school. So on my arrival there, it was just like, but I'm dealing with grown men at this point in time, it was just like me going into the juvenile facility. We were outnumbered by our enemies, but it was a different element at this point in time because it was a opportunity for me to make money too while I'm incarcerated through the drug trade from being in prison. So I, like I said, it was still on with fighting with the enemies and and the enemies with me at this point in time. And I want to explain me, when you hear me say enemies, it's basically talking about the Crips. And I know you guys are very familiar with the term Crips and what they are. They're the rivals to the Bloods. But at this point in time in prison, like I said, it's still very active between us two organizations in its own. But at this point in time, I'm able to find a method to make money while I'm in jail. So me growing up the way I did, as far as always wanting to be some type of an entrepreneurial, even though it was illegal, I was considering myself a businessman. So I found an opportunity to smuggle drugs into the prison, and I became known in prison as that person right there, very violent, but I'm selling drugs in there like I would be doing on the streets, And while I'm in there, like I said, it's a lot of things that you can't control while you're in there from the outside world. So my friends were still at war with the Crips. And while I'm in there, they're getting killed. So we're in there and we're at war with them and we're stabbing them. They're stabbing us and it's going back and forth, and we've got this drug trade going on. And throughout all this, I still never, ever, ever, ever stopped wanting to be where I'm from. We used to literally say, I'm gonna be a blood till I die. That was one of the slogans that we would use. I'm gonna die doing this. You know what I mean? Or I'm gonna continue to kill doing this. So, like I said, from the span of being 17 to 23 years old, I spent my time in segregation. You know what I mean? In and out, I get out and I'll do the same thing. But I had a drug pipeline that was going on in there to where I was basically able to become successful from behind prison, to where I was literally buying cars. I would get a newspaper ad. I was able to get newspapers, and then I would buy a car from a prison cell and have the car waiting on me when I came home, So it was very lucrative in that thing. So it was really not no way for me to say, okay, I'm gonna change this particular part. And I also want to add on to this is what is being portrayed unto me by my elders. I like I said, I really never had a person to come to me that wasn't a hustler, like a doctor or lawyer, or some say, well, here goes another thing. All I knew was people who was either a pimp, a robber, a gangbanger, whatever. That's all so to be successful in that aspect, you were considered a celebrity around. And I started pushing myself through those ranks as well, even from being incarcerated. But my thought process was twisted to where I tricked myself into believing that's all I knew. I brainwashed myself into believing that's all I knew, so I can continue to get away with this criminal lifestyle. So from that point on, like I said, I did from 17 to 23 years old with the same mentality that I had from when I was 15 to 17 in prison. Even before that, I kept the same mentality. So I complete that time and I get out, hit the ground running. I didn't even test the waters. I just jumped all the way in. I didn't even want to get out and, try to have a normal life. I got out and I took the earnings that I made in prison, and I took that money and I immediately went and invested into drugs on the streets. By this time, it was, my ranking had grown. It had grown to Garrett can contest to this, to where it was almost, we call it hood fame. It was almost superstar status in the ghetto community. And this is from Los Angeles, me personally, from Los Angeles to Denver to New York City. I was known as basically a drug lord, a gang leader, at this point in time. So I with the same thought process that I had then, I hit the ground running, and man, we tore the city up. From anything that you could think about, besides rape, burglary, and auto theft, we did. Besides those things there, that I mean, we didn't have to steal, so nobody had to worry about their property. We didn't believe in raping women or nothing like that, so that wasn't out of it. But from murder to bank robbery to armored car robbery to just stuff like that, we did it, and we took advantage of it to selling whatever drug that you could think about to make a profit. We did it. We did it, and I was out for 11 months to where I was hit with the RICO Act by the FBI, for organized crime. At this point in time, I was apprehended, and I was facing 412 years for my acts in organized crime. And like I said, those crimes stem from bank robbery all the way to homicide. And had top paid lawyers, all this. I was indicted with 10 other people that was with my organization. And it was, at this point in time, it was one of the biggest criminal indictments. But matter of fact, it wasn't one. It was the biggest criminal indictment that Colorado had ever seen. It was called the RICO Act, and it was called the COCA Act, the Colorado Organized Crime Control Act. And they was talking about taking the rest of my life. And at this point in time, I still was dedicated. I still, we're not folding, we're not breaking. We're going to continue to do this, even if we have to do it behind bars. I had a pretty good lawyer at this point in time. Me and my friends, that's one thing we were able to do with our money, was we was able to get some good counsel. We was able to get some good lawyers, and every last one of us wound up with a 12-year sentence. So from that point on, I went from 15 years old to 23 years old to 30 years old in prison. I spent all that time, was able to get out for a quick second, maybe a matter of months, and I'm right back in there, accumulate this much money, hurt this many people, do all this, and I was able to do that within this amount of, with this little bit amount of time. And I just gave you the time frame from which I spent in prison. During this time on my indictment, where I had got the 12-year bid, is when it started to finally hit me that I never, ever in my whole entire life ever met a successful criminal. I ran down the line of all these older guys that I was telling you guys about, who were negative, who drove the pretty Cadillacs, the Maseratis, the Bentleys, and all these guys. Even though they had this materialistic stuff, they died. They got life sentences. And I started letting this play through my mind. Is this where I want to be? Is this where I want to end up at? The success rate was zero. It wasn't, at this point in time, it's time for me to put the childish stuff away and start evaluating my life. And so at this point in time, I just started thinking and saying, how can you say, rewire myself? Can you put it, rewire myself to think in another way, to where, like I said, I brainwashed myself into this living for so long, it became natural. It became, how can I personally rewire myself? And in this process, I had a lot of struggles with coming to terminology with me just being Black. Did I have another option? How can I change it for future people who might go through this? It was one of the biggest struggles that I ever faced in my life until this day. That who am I? Who am I? How can I get back to that person that loved Christmas, that loved, Thanksgiving? How can I get back to this person after all the killing and after all the negative stuff, after all the time I've done? How can I get back to that person? And so what I did while I was in prison, I started taking anger management classes and starting to see where does this anger come from? Where does this stuff come from? Where does it come from? And in the process of that, I learned the thing of a cognitive thought process, to be able to think through things, you know what I mean? And it was small at first. Sometimes I didn't agree with it because it was two different cultures. In Buena Vista, I have a teacher that comes from Buena Vista. So how can this white lady who went to school and learned all that she knows in a book tell me something? I come from this horrible environment from here. You know, she's never been through what I've been through, and I've fought that process. And the things that she did learn in the book, not to say everything was right, but a lot of the things for me to be able to come unto myself, it started panning out and say, okay, well, stop and think. Just because someone's looking at you, you mean you gotta go sock him in his mouth? Just starting to be able to put all this stuff into, perspective. Um, it was just a challenge, like I said, with myself. I started grabbing books and started learning where I come from, and not books of history that we learned in school, but I started reading books that were literally written by Black people, Black authors from the 1800s, that really published books, until the early 1900s, and started saying, who am I? Who am I? In the process of starting to figure out who I was, I started being able to see everybody else's culture blended in with that personally. I went through a transformation at that point in time in my life to where I said I have to change, and not for the better of me, but for the community, for humans, period. You know what I mean? How can I empathize with people who I victimize? How can I put myself in their shoes? You know what I mean? And say, you know, how do you feel? How would you feel? And I started coming into reality with that type of thing. And I said, well, when I get out of prison this time, I'm gonna try my best to make a difference. I got out of prison at 30 years old, and I got my first job ever at 30 years old. It wasn't what I wanted, and so I worked it for a little bit and I quit. And so I was able to pick up another job, and I did that for a little bit, and it was a forklift job. I kind of liked it, that, but it still wasn't the money that I was used to. It wasn't, it wasn't the lifestyle I was used to. I had to take a pay cut big time from the lifestyle I used to live. So, I got it. I did odd jobs. I've always been good at saving the money that I was able to make, no matter what it was. So I I did something that I regretted at this point in time, but I don't regret it now. I pulled myself away from my homies. I pulled myself away from the community. I pulled myself away from everybody, and I thought that this was going to be my source of me surviving, to where if I didn't associate with these guys, I wouldn't be a part of it, and I wouldn't fall victim to what that lifestyle brings. And in the process, a lot of people started getting killed. In my absence, me going on saying, hey, I want to live this legitimate life. I want to go over here, take care of my family. I just want the normal life. I don't want to deal with this no more. A lot of children in our community started getting killed. The gang violence had spiked, and it wasn't no one in the community that had a voice to be able to stop and even come in and try to put an end to it. And how I'm finding this out is not from the streets anymore. I'm watching the news and saying, whoa, wow, this happened, that happened. I mean, to where these little guys out here were getting killed 2 and 3 in one whop, quadruple homicides, ride by and kill 4 guys, from ages to 12 to 16 years old, and this was going. So I said, well, you just can't sit by and allow this to go on, and you've changed your life. You have a message, and so at this point in time, I said, well, who can I reach out to? Who can I reach out to and say, hey, I think I can help out with this particular problem, because of me being a reputable from a lot of people who leave the gang life is because they had to leave the gang life, either because they were an informant or they got killed or they got life. That's the reason why they left the gang life. Me, that wasn't my case. I chose to back away from it and, just start doing different things. I said, hey, man, you tore this place up. I started telling myself, you tore this place up. You are a big part of the reason why this stuff is going on. If not one of the biggest, as far as I'm concerned, that really, as far as Park Hill is concerned, as far as the blood is concerned, you're one of the ones who really got it going. And my conscience would not let me just live with that. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with a gang activist in Denver called Reverend Leon Kelly. I tracked him down. And at this point in time, I think like the night before, 2 young guys were killed, and they were ambushed inside. Some guys broke into their apartment, waiting for them to come home. And when they came in, the guys killed them. Barricaded the door so nobody can get in. The only reason why they found these 2 guys is because the bodies decomposed and the neighbors smelled them. So it kind of touched me to the point, and I actually knew these 2 guys. I actually knew them. And it touched me, and I said, well, what can you do? What is this, something that you can do? So like I said, I reached out to Reverend Leon Kelly, and he said, well, just come down here and talk to me, and we'll see what we can do from a thing. And if it's some people that you could bring to the table, and then we get some rivals to come to the table too, we'll see what we can get going. So at first it was just discussions, because like I said, I had been away from the stuff at this point in time for about 5 years. I'm living my life, and a couple rivals that I was able to get to the table. I mean, real reputables that was rivals, reputables, and within the same way I live my life as being a blood, they live their life as being a Crip. Successful, reputables, very well-known guys from their part of town. I was able, due to all the stuff that I did from being a young guy, I was able to bring these guys who was rivals to the table out of respect, and they were able to come to the table. So this is how I got involved in the work that I'm doing right now. I just seen how destructive it was, and how much I tore down. And I asked these guys who were rivals, I said, since we tore down so much, how does it look if we start rebuilding? How would that look? What would that look like for us to start rebuilding? And we came to the table at this point in time. And I don't know if they were tired of the killings just like I was, or if it was just an opportunity for them to be able to breathe and express themselves. I don't know. So we were able to get together and start a program that was called POTS at this point in time. And that's called Part of the Solution. That's what it stands for, Part of the Solution. And we just called it POTS. And it was like just a lot of brothers from both sides of town, from my neighborhood to East Denver, to where, we came together, man, and we were able to get a good push going. Due to the word that my brother Garrett likes to use, is called straddling the fence, a lot of them didn't stay down. The streets called them back into that same lifestyle. The money we weren't getting paid nothing, basically. We were out here, and people's families started. So a lot of those guys went back to doing what they did, selling drugs, pimping girls, or whatever it was that was their profession to make the money. They went back. I just stayed down and diligent. I said, hey, it's just something I got to do. So in that process, I ran across a lot of good people, that came out and said, hey, man, if you're serious about it, I'm serious about it, and a lot of support. Craig happened to be one of them, and even a partnership with Montview. I've came and even spoke at Montview before. I don't know if you guys remember. How long ago was that? About 2 years ago, and all out of support. One thing I can say about the brother Craig, like, he gave me a wonderful introduction, but he's been over there with us. He's the guys that he told you that was in that room were literally some of the most hardcore guys as far as gangs go, period, across America, that he was sitting in that room with. And just to say that he didn't never have to come there. This is not nothing, but he's been dug out in the trench with me and Garrett. I mean, he sits on the benches where literally murders just occurred the night before, right across from our office. Our office is located right on 33rd and Hudson, and literally right across the street from it is a notorious blood gang hangout. Craig has came over there and sat down there with us and congregated with us and chilled out and listened to the stories, and was able to see some of these same exact guys that I used to be, that hasn't changed their life around. A lot of them come over and they're still involved. And hey, he's been there, and it was just a wonderful support for him to come through and just listen to him, to where we said, hey man, would you be a part of our board, to where you can help us express unto other people about this particular thing that's going on, that's been going on. Like I said, from my perspective, at one point in time in my life, this is all I knew. I didn't have no other alternative. It wasn't no one who ever came to school and said, hey, Pernell, you could be a doctor. It was never no one who came to my school and said, hey, you could even go to the army. You know what I mean? That the army to us was okay. Either go to juvenile hall or go to the army. It wasn't no way out for us. We didn't have no one coming to recruit us to be a police officer. We didn't have no one to come and say, hey, it's cool to be a fire. We didn't have none of that. So for Craig to come around and say, hey, I hear that you come from this struggle. I see that you've never had the same exact resource that other kids that's not of color that had to grow up with. And I see that you were able to make a change and start, doing things. And I want to support that. And it was very important to me to where now, like I said, he's a household name. He said, I wouldn't even go over there without you, Pernell. And this is, everybody knows about Park Hill, but it's another part of Park Hill too. It's another part. This is wonderful over here where Craig lives, but it's a whole nother part, a few blocks away. If cut a couple corners, go up a few blocks, and you will see, oh yeah, I see what he's talking about. Actually, right where my office is at, my brother was just murdered. Two of my brothers was just shot. One of them was murdered no more than a month and a half ago. We just buried my brother. Caught up in the same lifestyle that I was once glorifying. I just buried a brother. Within 2020, I think I've been to 9 funerals, and that's just 2020. To where literally, Garrett could tell you, he's on here right now, to where we watched him clean up the blood literally right across from our office. This is where Craig comes and sits down with us at, you know what I mean? Right in the battlefield, and just so much support. And even when things weren't going right with our organization, he's had our back, you know what I mean? And like I said, even Montview, for the things that you guys have contributed unto us, it's been very well used, and it's been very well, we just thank you guys for all the support that you've given us. Our biggest challenge right now is basically that we're going through right now is cultural differences. The gentrification that they're bringing into the neighborhood. A lot of people don't know each other's cultures. We all speak the same language, but we're on two different planes for some reason. You know what I mean? And the way that we're being viewed as being Black is the way that we're getting used to being viewed, well, I'm not gonna say we're getting used to, we've been used to it. I was telling Craig that you have children right now who's in Park Hill who couldn't trust white people for nothing because the white people that they're used to incarcerated their fathers, took them from their mothers, you know what I mean? So that's the reality that they're used to. So when they go to school and it's a white teacher teaching them something, they automatically have a guard up, because all what they've ever experienced was, a lot of being looked down upon and shunned upon and not to say that these particular white people did it, this is just what it's like. And this is what I'm battling with every day. Gary's battling with every day. It's cultural differences. A lot of things that need to be taught as social responsibilities to where, you can even hear by the way I talk. I don't, you understand what I'm saying, but I don't elaborate myself and bring my words out like a white person might. That type of cultural differences would people get shunned upon in the community all day, and vice versa. Black people don't want to trust white people because of this, and this is something that we go through every day, and vice. It's just crazy. And so that's one of the only barriers that I'm seeing right now is since everybody's all coming together, living in the same exact spot. We got to come up with something to where it's not, I don't see no time soon where Black people's going to move out of Park Hill, no matter what. And we have to come with some kind of way to, support each other and support some of the issues that's going on within these communities and be able to bring awareness unto some of these kids and say, hey, you can be the police. They're still not being taught unto this day. Me and Garrett is in some of the roughest schools in Denver. It's a lot of Black kids and Hispanic kids who don't even know that the opportunity even presents itself for them to be a fire marshal. You know, they don't have a clue. These are things that's not offered unto people of color. You know what I mean? And if it is, then it's almost just like hitting the lottery. It's almost just like becoming an NBA basketball star. And to speak on that, out of all the athletes I know in my neighborhood, only one made it, and that's Chauncey Billups. And I know 10, 15 dudes that play better basketball than him. You know, he was the only one who got a shot. I know a lot of dudes that play, you know, that box, you know, I mean, they never was able to give an opportunity. And I just say that nowadays, you know, we just got to coexist and just be able to bring about social awareness, you know, bring some social awareness about everybody's culture. Because I didn't grow up in a white household doesn't mean that I should disrespect it. You know what I mean? Or automatically look at, oh, this white dude, he's here to do this. Which once thought, and Craig and him and a lot of other white people came and said, hey, nah, P, it's not like that. You know, we want to come here and we want to help. We want to see what's going on, you know, and all I can say is, man, I'm very thankful for the opportunity that first off God has given me to be able to, like I said, put that brick back. I'm glad that he came and took me out of that darkness and allowed me to say, hey, man, you got to make a difference, you know, not just for Black people, not just for people of color, but so we all can coexist in a society which we're all one, you know what I mean? And that's what I'm here to do, you know what I mean? And I'm not the person that sit here and say that Black lives matter like that. I don't want to sit here and put it out there, because to me, all lives matter. And I know that for a fact, you know. I don't want to see nothing happen to a Ku Klux Klan member. I just don't. You know what I mean? I just wish that, you know, from his perspective, that he, you know, he'd tear down his walls like I had to. And I know about building walls, because I built some horrible ones and I didn't want to step out of them and I didn't want to let nobody in. I just want to, you know, from the job that I'm doing, man, I just want to help, you know, the people of color and other people say, hey, how can we be a future? How can we be the future for the people like me and you guys on here? I don't see too many youngsters, but we're going to have a future one day. You know what I mean? And we're going to have people that stand up and be able to take care of us, you know what I mean? And be able to run our society the way it's supposed to be ran. And that's all I'm here to do. And I thank you guys for the opportunity to sit here and be able to hear my boring story. You know what I mean? And if it's anything you guys would like to ask me, you know what I mean? The table's open. And if Craig, is there anything you would like to ask me?
Did you myself? Why don't you just let people on the call ask? I got
Right.
a few things I can ask. If we
Right.
have questions, go for it.
If anybody would have a question or anything.
Yes, or
I don't think no one has any questions.
I have a question.
Okay.
Hi. Hi, Pernell. It's Jen
Hi.
Stewart. I met you a couple
Hi.
years ago. What can we do as your neighbors? What would be helpful?
Well,
And
I
tips.
mean,
Tell us how to be.
well, you know, first off is like I said, just interaction. You know, communication rules the nation. You know what I mean? Like I said, being able to tear down some of these walls that we all build up, and sometimes saying, okay, well, can I see what is going on, like Craig did, from my own perspective, and how can I help out from that point on? And like I said, it's in a lot of ways. So to be able to help out everyone's being able to identify, you know what I mean, and saying, hey, you know, I don't want to just stare at everything, you know, from the eyes of my parents, from the eyes of what society say. You know, can I tear that down and go see for myself? You know what I mean? What's really going on? What's really needed? Because we can't really just pinpoint one simple thing. You know, just being active in the community. You know, that's all I can say is just probably just being an active participant in the community and not just the community from this part, from the white perspective of the privilege, coming to say, hey, what is really going on over there? Why don't they have these resources? Why is it? I mean, they're there, but how can we get these out there to the multitudes of people? Just a support system saying, how can we get this information out to people who's right next door to us? How can we get this, and that's even not just from, like I said, education. This is even health. People don't even know they can go get mental health. They don't know where to start at. It's not no one to come here and be able to give, say, okay, well, this is where you even start off to go get, to go get yourself looked at by a mental health physician. You know what I mean? Even down to health care. A lot of people wouldn't, they're sitting in there dying inside the house. They think they have to have insurance to, to go to the hospital and get a simple tooth pulled. Now to spread an infection, this guy got to get all his teeth taken out. Things to that nature, is to where it's almost, you wouldn't believe it, to where it almost seems like a third world country over here sometimes. You know what I mean? Where people say, well, you guys didn't know about this? No, because no one made this information available.
Pernell, if you don't mind, if I can expand a little bit further to answer your question, Jennifer. One thing culturally I will say is this is a told this to Craig in the past before. It's even though we're in a nonprofit and I have to really focus myself to put myself in the lens of you're the executive director and we do need help, right? But culturally, we don't like to ask for help. Right. Pernell and I have done a lot of things where we just try to make, like how Craig put it, with bubble gum and a paper clip. We're putting stuff together, but we do need there's a lot of ways that we need support. And I don't want to take up the platform, this platform, to talk about that necessarily, but I would love anybody that would be interested. I would love to have conversations because there's a number of ways that we can use support, and it's from some of the things that Pernell just spoke about with even just having a presence there to start to build relationships and allow other cultures to comfortably experience your culture as well. That's one of the ways, but we've also, we had a cohort of Montview members that came out and supported us with doing some cleaning up around our building. And that was greatly appreciated. But again, I'm just trying to put myself into that executive director lens of a nonprofit organization who relies solely on, help from the community, to say that we do need help, but culturally, we just culturally don't ask or don't really, it's almost to the point of, like, I put it like this, it's not like we're not willing to take help or don't want to ask for help, but we don't want to overstep or impose on anybody or seem like we're imposing. And I have to, again, have that code switch in my head to reframe it and understand that, well, this is how we have to be able to generate the support and the resources that we need to be able to operate effectively. And so, Jennifer, to answer that question, I'll put my email in the chat, and if anybody would like to email me, I would love to further those conversations, and just, depending on what you have to bring to the table is what we could benefit from. And so I'll just say it like that. But we need, I need personally, and Pernell even, I need some people, I need to pick your brain. I need to get a perspective that I might not be able to see for myself, or maybe a connection to a resource, or, of course, we're a nonprofit, so it's unquestioned to say that we need financial support. But there's a world of ways that that I think that we could benefit from support. And Craig and I have, and Pernell, and we have all been really further in discussions on what can we do to further and expand and strengthen our relationship with Montview Church. For all that are on the meeting as well. Coincidentally, if you're long members, you may all know my mother, who has been a long time member of the Montview community over 35 years. Janet Crawford is my mother. And so coincidentally, through no connection to that, I happened to meet Craig, and that's how we found the connection of Montview, and so we had that going for us as well. But I want to get off of that. I'm going to put my email in the chat, and if we want to further that conversation, or if it comes back around and we want to dive into that explicitly, then we could do that as well. But I just think that this is an awesome experience, and I appreciate you, Craig, for putting this together. And I would really like to, really further some of the other ideas that we had too, like that. One idea that just to the community that Craig and I talked about is a possibility of, after COVID subsides, maybe we can arrange some family dinners where, we can have dinners together with families from our neighborhood, from, with members of the Montview Church, just to help bridge those gaps and be able to have those experiences of another culture that you may not otherwise
I love
have.
that.
But I'll give up the floor.
I love all of that. I think the dinners are great, but in the meantime, we've so many folks. My husband's in nonprofit management, and there's so many folks that I'm looking at on the screen who have, things that they would love to sit down over coffee and chat with you about. And I just think, how do we get that word out there, Ian?
So could I jump in for just a quick sec and just ask if you could just give an overview of IEG? I don't think in this hour, I think a lot of us who are in Mission Life have heard an overview, but I don't know that everyone on this call has heard an overview of the mission of IEG and your major programs right now and how we could support those programs, and and then go from there.
Can I have my, okay. I'm chilling.
I see you.
Yeah. I have done mentoring at the women's prison and have worked with people who have been in gangs and various things. It seems to me that, or that a lot of these, that we have holes in our communities going back to our schools. There's holes in the schools as far as, that kids have fallen through the cracks. Oh, now you get to hear my dog. Fallen through the cracks. Parents have fallen through the cracks. That there hasn't been a whole lot of follow through from very early in life. Like you were talking about, so many children, the food, insufficiency, that kind of thing. No support as far as education. And so how as we as humans, can we empower our communities, our churches, to develop policies to be more supportive, even from a very young up until, because a lot of, like you were saying, a lot of your stuff started when you were very young, right? And the anger and all that goes on. So can you address that? How something that we can do without IEG or whatever? Okay, thanks.
Garrett, can I turn this over to you so you can explain some of the programs that we are currently involved with and some of the things that we're currently doing right now as far as the community goes? And so you can express a little bit about what we're doing right now and see if that fits into anything what they're saying, and saying, if they could lend a hand to exactly what we're doing as far as all the way from the gang intervention and prevention all the way to the school to prison pipeline.
Yeah. So, first of all, I want to say that to your point, the last speaker, there are a lot of issues that have been deeply embedded, and have been going on for generations. And so there's not going to be a light switch
You froze up on us, bro. I don't know what he was about to say, but one thing I can say is, like, you know, what I think he was headed to. Right
People
now
as individuals.
okay, there you go. You froze up, bro. We didn't hear nothing you had said.
I apologize. So,
Right.
I'm not sure where it cut off. I don't know if that was my internet signal or what, but the point I was trying to get to is that there's not one solution. These problems that are affecting our community are systematic and have been going on for generations, and there's not an overnight switch. So, but with that being said, too, we feel like the best approach is to look at every case on an individual basis. There's not a cookie cutter solution for anything. Every situation needs to be assessed, and an individual plan needs to be developed. But and that's how we interact with clients, right? We don't come in and say that, okay, everybody's going to do things the same way, or we're going to present the same way. Different people resonate on different things. They may identify more with a certain aspect or a certain program that we offer, and so we try to make it individualized. IEG, our mission is to equipping and empowering our community through. Well, sorry, I apologize, but we are in the process of redoing our actual. I'm sorry, I just lost train of thought for a second, but our mission is to basically, we find that we're looking to provide solutions through economic empowerment. To speak to what Pernell identified, is that a lot of what drew him into criminal behaviors and the criminal lifestyle, it was monetarily motivated. So coming up from a poor economic background and seeing people that have nice things, that's what draws people in. And so we want to be able to provide solutions to people to find alternatives to criminal activity, to be able to be economically empowered. And so one of the programs that actually Craig helped us get going was a career development program. Basically what we do is we help bridge the gap for people that have not had success in traditional employment opportunities, or have significant barriers to employment, like returning from incarceration, or facial tattoos, or anything like that. And so what we basically, with that program, we do career navigation, we do individualized case management, and we do follow through life coaching, where we're continue to meet with them over the process and try to get people connected with jobs. Our main contract that we work under is through the Department of Safety, and it's to provide gang intervention and prevention work. This is a twofold type of deal. One is on the side of violence interruption, and the other is on the side of secondary prevention. So violence interruption is responding to shootings, responding to gang incidents, trying to mitigate quarrels between individuals and rival gangs, responding to schools when they're having gang incidents, and laying in prevention tactics. The secondary prevention is when kids or youth are going through the criminal justice system and they're identified as having gang affiliations. Then they get referred to our program for the one-on-one intensive mentoring and connections with resources. Our main focus with youth is on positive self-identity, reduction of risk factors, increase of protective factors, and positive social engagement. And so in addition to the gang intervention and prevention, we recently entered into a contract with the Colorado Attorney General's office to develop a program to aimed at disrupting the school to prison pipeline. And so we're taking a multi-tiered approach where first we're going to, well, one of the tiers is that we're going to partner with schools in our community. In each school, we're going to identify youth who are at risk of suspension, expulsion, or disengagement, and we're going to pour in support to that youth. We're going to, connect them with life coaching, with intensive one-on-one mentoring, identify any resources that the family could benefit from, and try to connect them with those resources, and really just try to act as a mediator between the school and the youth to try to mitigate some of the school discipline practices that contribute to the school to prison pipeline. The second component is that we're going to develop and deliver 2 different trainings to the schools that we partner with. One is going to be for cultural responsiveness, and that's going to be basically trying to help teachers learn how to deal with peoples that come from different cultures, including gang cultures, or just how to relate and how to understand kids better. And then the second training that we're going to develop is for equity and school discipline practices. And so that will be looking at identifying policies that are in place that are unequitable, and discipline policies that are not effective or inequitable, and how can we implement more effective practices. And then the third component is meeting with, convening a cohort of youth in each of the schools, and having the youth develop a social awareness campaign, raising the issue of information about the school to prison pipeline, as well as solutions on how to dismantle the school to prison pipeline. I know that's a whole mouthful, and again, I really didn't want to use up this platform for that, because that's not really what this meeting was set for. But I would love, I'll put my email in the chat, and love to have, another conversation at another time, or be able to go into it further when I'll be more prepared to speak on some of that.
And
but
I just want to add to where this problem that we're having is not a one-shot solution. I really, growing up in this, it's thousands of things that we all could do to help this out. I just really can't pinpoint one and put one above the other, because it's all very detrimental to the survival of this as a community. So I just really couldn't pinpoint one thing and say, how can you, not knowing your, you each and every last one of you guys specific, things that you're good at and what you're able to help with. I really couldn't just say, what could you do? It might not be something that fits you. Okay, I could say, okay, well, what can I do, Pernell? Oh, you can come over here and talk to these bullet-ridden gang members with me and tell them, I don't know, you know what I mean? You would just have to come and basically see, it's like I said, this is like a hands-on thing, I couldn't just explain one thing, but I had also see that Julie has your hand raised up, and if it's a question that you might want to ask.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Pernell, I was going to ask about COVID-19 and how it has affected both the people who you had placed in jobs, now don't have a job anymore, and for IEG looking forward, do you have to kind of collect yourselves again into a functioning group, or are you already gathered back together? I understood that you had some struggles with COVID.
We actually did. We were actually summoned by the city to go, and because we're funded by the city, to go with their guidelines of how they structure and how they wanted to fight the situation with COVID. So for a minute, they told us to basically stand down, no human contact, and if it was going to be anything, over the computer. But that's hard when you got homicides still taking place. You know what I mean? You have, like Garrett said, we still have to show up to some of these scenes. We still have to provide services for the family of the deceased, you know what I mean, and be able to tap them in with the right resources so they can bury their loved ones, So only thing we can basically do is, like I said, follow the COVID guidelines as far as the social distancing guidelines, as far as keeping the 6 feet, keep your mask on, keep washing your hands, all that. But as far as us being able to have to take a day off, we're almost like, first responders, you know what I mean, to a scene. Like I said, since COVID has happened, you guys, and I don't want to sound like I'm numb to this situation, but I've almost forgot how many things that we responded to. You know what I mean? It becomes the norm sometimes. So they tried, and I think it lasted for me and Garrett about a week. You know what I mean? Into where we had to get back out in the field. You know what I mean? We had to go provide these services. We had to go. You know what I mean? So as far as that goes, we just as far as taking care of our health is what we're faced with now.
Okay, that's good.
And to further as well.
And then with the guys with jobs, to answer that question, a lot of them has been like I said, laid off their job. Due to social distance, they lost their job. So and sadly to say, they returned back to what they know best. Survival. Selling drugs, whatever it is that was illegal that got them in that. It's sad to say, but a lot of them had to resort back to doing what they do, to provide for themselves, was just hustling.
And to further answer the question, so with COVID-19, yes, we did have to reduce our staff at the time due to funding.
Right.
We still are operating programs. We helped within the last month, 5 different people with jobs. 2 people we sent to this tire shop that one of the guys that Pernell knew from the neighborhood happened to be driving down the street and caught up with us while we were sitting outside the office, and it was like, yeah, I got, I'm at this tire shop down the street, and yeah, they're hiring. So we were able to get a couple of people connected with a job over there, and then I helped 2 other individuals get on an apprenticeship with RK Mechanical, and then it was one other person that came and got a job. It's slipping my mind at the moment, but we are still continuing to do the employment program. And again, some of it we don't have funding to operate how we would optimally like to operate, but we still have the programs and we're still running them.
Right.
To answer your question.
That's great.
Right.
Congratulations.
And Ian?
Yeah.
I see you had your hand up there, man. What's going on, bro?
Thank you, sir. First of all, Garrett did not know that we had that connection with your mom, Janet. That is fabulous, and love that. Craig, thank you so much for putting this together, and clearly what you have done to build the relationship with IEG. And Pernell, first of all, I can't thank you enough for your honesty and just that story that you just laid out for us, and the way you described your life and how this has impacted you and how you've changed. And one of the things you said was that there weren't many young people when you looked at this call. I want you to know I've got 3 teenagers here, and they did not look at their phone one time during your conversation.
Right.
They were paying attention. And in fact, I've got one of them, my son's friend, Wally, here, who has a question for you. So if that's all right. Well,
yeah. It's more, yeah.
Yeah. So, I live over by like Federal and like Exposition. I live on Exposition, and there's like quite a bit of gang violence over there. And I know a few personal teenagers that are my age that are involved with like gang violence and stuff like that. But like, is there a way that I could like try to personally help them maybe like get out of that, or get the resources for them to like help themselves get out of that situation?
Yeah, it is a way, man, and you're doing it right now is by communicating. Even from the stories you heard me share, if they haven't been down that path, you can say, "Hey, man, I talked to a guy that it didn't get him nowhere,"
Yeah.
and by even saying it, by sharing my experiences with them, you know what I mean, and say, "Hey, man, I talked to a guy who's 47 years old now." Who
Yeah.
joined the gang at 12 years old, and he spent half his life in prison. For those who didn't get to be where Pernell's at, they're either dead or in prison. There's no such thing as a success story coming from this. I told you the rate is zero. The success rate is zero. And if you could share this with them, man, and then also saying, hey, um hey, if these are really your friends, say, hey man, let me show you something different. This is what I do, you know what I mean? This is and that's what I call about social responsibility, being able to say, hey man, it's another way to do things, it's another way to live a life, and let me show you this, you know what I mean? We all want to belong to something, no matter what's the church, whether it's a gang, whether it's the Boy Scouts, whether it's Mary Kay, shopping, whatever. We all want to belong to some kind of group, some kind of sector. And if you can say, hey man, let me show you something different, and he's he wants to absorb this, yeah, you more than well you can say, hey man, this is what I do to have fun, and said, because he might not see anything different but what he sees, you know what I mean? And if you know a guy like that, say, hey man, there's other things, there's other alternatives to do what you do. And if you want a resource, then you're looking at one right now, and you're more than welcome to tap in with Craig and say, hey, I can even tell that youngster, that these guys that you might know, you can say, hey man, I can get this same guy to come and talk to you and tell you the same exact thing, you know what I mean? And not only that, show you, exactly, this is not the life for you. So yeah, you do have resources, and I happen to be one of them for you, you know what I mean? So if you ever, that conversation ever came up and you wanted to go and approach these guys, one is to show them from your own perspective, hey, I don't live like that and I'm surviving.
Yeah.
I'm having a good time. And two, I got a guy, named Pernell, who came from Park Hill, one of the worst gang neighborhoods in Denver. And yeah, he can come talk to you. He can give you different alternatives. I can go here and I can tell this kid, this is not the path.
Yeah. And I also, me and my friend Ian here, we skateboard.
Right.
And we did just like an example of if anybody's thinking about that, maybe involving them in the skateboarding community, which is a very welcoming and large community. So yeah.
Exactly. And let them know that that's something that they can attach themselves to, you know what I mean? Outside of it, which is a culture of itself. Skateboarding is a culture of itself. A lot of your parents probably don't understand that culture, you know what I mean? Which is I do, you know what I mean? That's a culture within itself, you know what I mean? Which is, and you can say it's a good side of that and it's a bad side of that, you know what I mean? But yeah, if you're on a positive side of that skateboard community, man, yeah, take them to them, show them something different. A lot of these, like for me, I knew how to play sports. I knew how to do all that, but how far can I go? You know what I mean? And maybe you can take him farther than due to your cultural differences being, and I'm not trying to sound funny, but being white. Maybe you can show these guys something different. You can take them to a different skate park. You can show them some of your culture. And that's why I call social responsibility. They don't have to be stuck in the negative things that they grew up in, and you can help them out of that. And if they need some resources more than that, then you're more than welcome to always reach out to me. If they need more than what you're able to offer and they need just more, you know what I mean? Because it might be that. You can always reach out to me, bro. And I can help you with this particular situation.
Well, thank you.
No problem.
Yeah.
Keep skating, man.
Thank you.
You know it. Does anybody else have any questions? Or anybody want me to know something about you? No.
Hi, I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, so I live in Northeast Park Hill, and we've been fairly involved with Hiawatha, the community center and everything up there. How young does the organization start to ingrate themselves with the children, or is it as they get older and there starts to be problems is when you all come in? At what age do you guys all start?
Like I said, we you'd be surprised, there's guys that we deal with on our caseloads from 10 on up. To where the gang life starts off with a lot of these kids, you know what I mean, to where they could be 10 and up. You know what I mean? That's when they really, the normal range is from 13 on up, but we've dealt with kids 10 years old, you know, who was less fortunate due to family members being addicted to drugs, and they had to get out there earlier, and the older gang members had to take care of them. And, you know, so yeah, it varies, but the normal range is from 13 and up is when they start to want to join a gang. But we would deal with them as young as they come. You know what I mean? As young as they would come, we would go out our way to deal with them, you know.
And we have other community partners that we associate with in Park Hill that specialize in elementary school kids too, if you're looking for a resource for that age.
Right, but as far as in the school, and as far as them keeping tapped into the education curriculum, then I would hook them with them people that he's talking about in the school. But as far as gangs are concerned, I would personally want to have hands-on with them that's in Northeast, you know, Denver, period. You know what I mean? Because it's nothing that someone who are stationed in them schools who could really, you know, tell a person who has, you know, decided to take that course upon, who could really tell this kid who's, you know, who's already joined a gang anything, as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean? So yeah, we could deal with them from any age where they decided to, you know, make this decision to join a gang and get involved. So, you know, it's not an age limit. And if that's your question, it's not. We would work with anybody. But the average age is, like I said, from 13 and up.
And just to share a quick story, Pernell and I, we had been really intensively working with this young man. He was 12 years old when he first got assigned to our caseload through his referral came through Denver Juvenile Denver Pretrial Services. He was in custody for a shooting. And in the incident, he actually shot himself in the leg as well when he was trying to get away. And this young man, we were meeting with him weekly for about 4 months straight during his time in the Gilliam. Pernell spoke on his behalf in court. We developed plans, you know, action plans and case management plans, and tried to get him set up with all the supports that he needs, participated in art staffings and meetings with Denver Public Schools and Denver Human Services and all these service providers involved. And this kid, Ian, when your son spoke, that's what made me think about this. This kid wanted to do parkour. And it's unfortunate that you know, it just wasn't able to happen. But I think that maybe, man, I still think in my mind, man, if that would have happened, maybe he wouldn't be where he's at right now. The same kid I'm talking about, we've seen him recently, but he's on the run. He cut off his ankle monitor, actually escaped from ROP. He was sent to ROP, escaped from custody, and he's still only 13 right now, but he's out there in the streets, and we're trying to still reach him when we can get to him. But really, you know, it's just unfortunate that this is the life we live in, or that some people go through. But that just reminded me when Ian's son was speaking about skateboarding, and I got where he was coming from with providing alternative pro-social activities, which is one of the things that we try to encourage, because that does support disengagement from gang activity. When you're involved in other pro-social activities and stuff like that, that contributes to disengagement.
It's like I said, this is a monster and a machine that I'm serious. It's you can't sum it up within a few words. That's one. We've literally had kids on our caseload who were murdered. I don't know if you guys remember the kid that was murdered in the Aurora Mall about a year ago. He was actually on our caseload. You know what I mean? He was murdered in front of his mom. Gang violence, you know, due to social media. And if those guys, are your sons still around, Ian? Or they left?
Yeah, they just left. Yeah.
Okay, and this social media stuff that they got going now, man. If we could find any way, which I don't know, you know, like I said, a lot of questions I don't have answers to. This social media has given these kids all a platform to be whatever they want to be. And now it's giving them, you know, it's giving them the power to even catch each other and shoot each other. Like I said, we have people who's been on our caseload who's been murdered over the things they said on social media. You know what I mean? You know, and so, like I said, there's so many dynamics to this right here. The best thing I can say is to be involved. You know what I mean? Come and see where you might fit in on this particular situation, whether it be the school to prison pipeline, whether it be, just wanting to sit and talk to some of these kids or listen, not talk to them, but sometimes listen and see where they come from. You know what I mean? Any and everything can help. You know what I mean? As far as what are your best qualifications, saying maybe I can offer this particular service what I think they're lacking in. I think that would be the best way, to use a little bit of transparency and saying, hey, let me come and see what's going on for myself. And that's the only advice I can say is, hey, let me go check it out. Let me go see what I can really do. Where am I needed? You know what I mean? And that's my best advice. I think Craig wants to ask a few questions. We're almost done. 8:30, okay. We'll let you do it. Well, hey, everybody, it was wonderful talking to you guys, seeing everybody. And if it wasn't for COVID, I would like to shake you guys' hands at the end of all this, you know what I mean? And yeah, and thank you guys very much for everything, man. And all your support is really appreciated. Even you, the support of sitting here listening to this is very important to me, you know what I mean? So thank you guys, man, and may God continue to bless every last one of us.
Thank you, Pernell.
All right, I just wanted to wrap up and thank you guys, and obviously thank Pernell. Also, as I thought would happen, I mean, Pernell's a guy with a pretty powerful story, and obviously his story alone is worth the hour and a half. There's a lot more that could be talked about, and I guess the message I'd leave for the Montview family is IEG is a mission partner of ours now. As you can see, these are people who would love to continue to reach out and support us and provide us information and be a gateway and window and insight. And so one thought I have, because if I'd gotten around questions I have or I've talked to Pernell about, or to bring some of this around to, so what does all this mean about our current social moment where we're also focused on social justice? And I've had conversations with Pernell about, are you skeptical? Are you optimistic? Where do you think this is heading? And lots of other things. So that's at 8:30, time for another call. I also wish I had a half an hour to correct half the lies that Pernell told about me while we were on the phone. But anyway, I want to thank Pernell, man, so much. He's just fascinating, powerful guy to hear from, and a voice that we don't get to hear most of the time. And it's an important voice to hear because it's the voice of the neighborhood that we live in. And so I'm glad we had that opportunity. And I will say, Pernell, obviously a very open guy. So also, if you want to facilitate, I mean, again, if you have questions, you got Garrett's email, you can check in with me and, I'll hook you up with Pernell. And I can tell you, Ian, knowing Pernell, he's dead serious about if Ian or his friend have a thing and want a resource, he'll be there. A guy of amazing grace and generosity. So anyway,
he may take you up on that. Yeah. Yeah.
And tell Ian Jr. that his confirmation partner is very proud of him for.
This was I will. Can I take a second? Really, to watch these. So I had my son, my friends, my son's friend, and my daughter. And I kind of had to talk them into this, and they could not stop listening to this. And this was really special. And I think this will be one of those things that'll kind of lodge in their minds that will influence them and what they might do. And I mean, this was a very special night. So thank you all.
All right. Well, thanks all, and we'll schedule our time and maybe do it again. So.
Hey, good to see all the people that I've met before. John, how you doing down there? I see you. Don't want to forget anybody. Julie and Mark, how you?
Good. Yep.
Hi, Ellen.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Have
Thanks,
a good
Garrett.
All right.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it, Greg.
Ciao.
Great.
Bye, Heidi.
Thank you.